Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155 from UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not?
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcasts. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championship, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championship, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel De Leon, and hopefully your day is going well. Wherever you are, whoever you are, hopefully things are going well as we're persevering, yet what's going to feel like another tough year. So while the world is just, we're getting better, the world's getting at least a little bit better in terms of stability and stuff. But I am happy, though, that we got to watch UFC 257. Oh, wait a minute. Not all of us got to watch UFC 257. So before I get into the nitty-gritty of what happened on the show here, I gotta discuss the elephant in the room here. So, ESPN Plus. If you were the thousands of people out there that thought to themselves, alright then, it's Saturday, I'm excited for this. I open up my entire day to go watch this event here. Oh, Connor McGregor, awesome. Dustin Poirer is going to be awesome. There was a lot of hype going into the show. I think Dana White said that this fight was trending number 4 in the world. And I'll get to the trending part here because that ended up kind of bit them in the back later on. And so Dana White says, oh, dude, Dustin Poirier, Connor McGregor, this fight is trending. Even in the Dana White's Looking for a Fighter series, he went over to Khabib one time and he told him, the Dustin Poirier Conor McGregor fight, this fight is outpacing your fight, the Khabib Conor fight, big time on Twitter. And then he says, Dana White in the post-fight presser went and said that if he believes that Conor McGregor, Khabib 2, can even be more of a bigger, it can surpass Floyd versus Conor McGregor in terms of social media interaction and people talking about it. And as a person who's also really into NBA basketball, while people were watching the basketball games, I look on Twitter, I got some basketball YouTubers and basketball influencers personalities talking about the fights. The McGregor-Dustin Poirier fight. And I'm thinking, alright, this is awesome then. Everybody's talking about this fight. People are going to watch a show. It's going to be awesome. People want to see Conor McGregor, the return of Conor, make a good comeback and potentially go fight for a title yet again. But instead, this is what happened. Not only did Conor McGregor end up getting knocked out by Dustin Poirier, but many people didn't even get the chance to even see the fights because ESPN Plus, the app, apparently shut down. There were technical errors going on. And on Twitter, a lot of people were speculating, what's going on here? Like, I paid money for this. Why isn't ESPN Plus working? And it turns out that ESPN Plus not working only was an issue in the West Coast. For some reason, it's unsure why specifically only the West Coast people were struggling just opening the ESPN Plus app. But if you go on Twitter, the word #refund was the number 2 trending thing happening on Twitter. Number 2 was trending. Number 4 was Jake Paul. Alright then. That's how bad it was as it pertains to the social media interaction that came about for this UFC show. Yes, Dustin Poirier and McGregor, that show was also it was trending also, the event. But when you go click on the UFC main Twitter page, immediately you'll see a flood of everybody saying #refund, 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 #Dana White, #hackers. And I'm thinking about this, me and my friends were thinking about this. We thought to ourselves after the show was over that, you know what? Dana White, I think he should really stop picking a fight with the internet. Because although Dana White believes that, like, oh man, I got these internet hackers, these people illegally streaming, well, guess what? Because of the app being down in the West Coast, People in the West Coast, you know what they did? A lot of them went onto some streaming websites. And by the way, streaming websites are very easy to access. Heck, I watch a lot of basketball games on streaming websites because NBA League Pass, they need to really fix that issue where it gets difficult to watch some games at times. And also there's no commentary. And also, I won't be surprised here, a lot of people do watch football games on streaming websites. And I was about to pay for ESPN. I was about to pay for the pay-per-view because I already have ESPN Plus. Every single UFC show I watch is on ESPN Plus. I enjoy it. I watch it because the problem with streaming websites is that it's a complete downgrade in terms of picture quality. And so I enjoy watching my shows full, high definition, clear, looks great and stuff. I was watching the prelim fights, the beginning fights at 3 p.m. and I watched the prelims because I want to see every fight. And because there are a lot of fights, even like Khalil Roundtree was something I'm really excited for. Juliana Pena versus Eric McMahon, that was a fight that I was really excited for. So I was watching all the fights, and right before the pay-per-view started, it's like, that's the end of the prelims, let's go to the UFC pay-per-view event, UFC 257, see you there. And then I exited out of the UFC prelim page, got to the UFC pay-per-view page, was about to pay for it, and then, right as I was about to pay for it, the app crashes. The app crashes. I'm refreshing over and over and over again. Like, what's going on? And then I go on Twitter, and apparently thousands of people were going through this issue. And apparently from ESPN and Disney, they ended up putting a tweet out there saying, don't worry, there's going to be some refunds happening here. There'll be refunds. The good part, though, is that ESPN Plus, it got back. It came back for the final 2 fights, the co-main event and the main event. And a part of me was like, okay, awesome. We get to see the 2 big fights that everyone wants to see. Thing is, though, both fights ended. One fight, the co-main event ended in the first round, and then the second ended in the second round. So both fights ended early via knockout. And can you imagine somebody paying $70 to go see an accumulated fight time of 15 minutes? You paid $17 to see 15 minutes of fighting. And you can be like, well, you can see the hoopla, you can see the entrances. Like, entrances? Like, do people really see money to see Connor McGregor just to walk down an aisle? The promo packages, dude, these like, as a person who watched these shows on ESPN Plus, and I'm always on YouTube looking for MMA stuff, they re-showed the Connor McGregor Dustin Poirer promo package over and over and over again. There was not a single hour that went on to which they're not showing the promo package. I saw it in the beginning of the weigh-ins. I saw it after the weigh-ins. I saw even in the middle of the weigh-ins, they're showing the promo packages. The promo packages were appearing on YouTube when I was like scrolling through watching videos, and they're gonna like throw up the promo package. And then there's the UFC Countdown thing, which I also already watched because I enjoy this stuff. So I'm getting all this information like, oh man, McGregor, Poirier, it's going to be great. And then you see 15 minutes in its totality of the first round and the second round. Now, luckily, I didn't pay $70. I didn't pay $70 for it, though, because I was about to pay for it, but because ESPN Plus went down, and here's the thing, the majority of Americans don't have cable television, or just in a general sense, they don't even watch sports at all on TV. We don't. We watch it through either streaming sites or through apps. Like people that got Netflix, we got HBO, we got Hulu. Like I got all this, I'm paying for all this stuff here on top of ESPN Plus, okay? On top of that. So there really is like no need to have like normal television stuff. And here's the thing, the bars, I'm in Los Angeles, the bars are closed. Buffalo Wild Wings, they're all takeouts. Right then, I gotta find specific areas, specific zones that has the UFC pay-per-view event. Now, I know UFC, like, there's a Buffalo Wild Wings that has all the, that shows the UFC events coming up all the time, all in Anaheim. But here's the thing, I live all the way in Los Angeles. And I didn't know that the ESPN Plus thing was gonna be down. So I have to pretty much travel an hour and a half during traffic hour to go to Buffalo Wild Wings and I'm going to be late for the event. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing what happened. It's like there were so many things going against it for the UFC to be an enjoyable show because of this whole like, oh man, ESPN Plus is down, and it just so happened to be down right before the event actually started. What's going on? Also, even if you're not a person who is using ESPN Plus to go watch the pay-per-view events, you could be somebody watching, like, I don't know, croquet or tennis or whatever's on the ESPN Plus. There's a bunch of things you can watch on ESPN Plus. You can be watching a basketball documentary. You can watch a 30 for 30 series. You can be watching anything. And then right before this UFC pay-per-view event goes on, which you don't care about, the app goes down for some strange reason. What's going on there, huh? What's going on? And I know I'm kind of ranting here, but I love the fact that Dana White immediately after, the event happens, goes to the post-fight presser. He's like claiming this as a victory. Like he just hand waves, like the sidesteps the whole. Yeah, man, ESPN Plus was down. I don't know what's happening, but I will tell you this though: we won. We stopped that one guy who was planning to illegally stream our show. And I'm like, me and everyone else on the YouTube comments, me and all my friends, we're watching the post-fight presser. We're like, good job on you. You stopped the one guy, one person out there who was illegally streaming this stuff. Do you know how many streaming sites are out there, dude? There are thousands. There are thousands out there. And one thing you need to know with young people, actually, if we don't get what we want, man, we will somehow find a way to go get it. There are multiple streaming sites out there. Also, if you've never, like, watched basketball on a streaming site, or because I watched, like, basketball on streaming sites, and when I was watching MMA, the only reason why I watched MMA on a streaming site was because ESPN Plus was unavailable, my bars are closed, before Wyoming was closed. There was no other alternative way, other than maybe, like, going door to door and asking people, hey, do any of you guys have, like, normal television? Like, I don't know, like AT&T or something like that, so I can go watch. I don't know. Like, do you guys still do pay-per-views here? Because majority of young people do not order pay-per-views in the traditional way. It's an outdated thing. It's an outdated thing for young people. All right, then, like, even the whole Logan Paul KSI thing, people pay. Even though that fight had a whole lot of eyes in it, because it was mostly focused and dedicated towards appealing to that young demographic, that young audience. Its pay-per-view buys weren't anything all that special. It wasn't all that special or anything that big relative to any other boxing event going out there, to any boxing event or any MMA event, because young people generally don't go and, like, order traditional pay-per-views. We gotta go through, like, streaming sites, or we gotta go through, like, an app, i.e. ESPN Plus, which was unavailable. So what's going on? Alright then, it was understandable as to why many people... This was not a win. This is not a W. Alright then. This reminded me of the whole, like, Dana White, I think several years ago, where he was saying, look here, 4chan, look here, people in the internet, you don't scare me, I'll do what I want to do. And then, like, several years later, ESPN Plus goes down, everybody's making a fuss about it, everyone's joking about the fact that the hackers won, or that the people in the internet or streamers, they ended up winning. Dana White, he's taking it as a W. He's taking it as a W, like, we defeated this one guy. Sure. Okay. Whatever. UFC on ESPN Plus. It was difficult to watch this event. I was sort of late on it. I was able to. So I was calling my friends and be like, "Hey, how are you guys watching the show?" And then they told me that, like, there's a site out there. You can go click on it, and then so I ended up following the site, and it led me to watching the show because there were people out there who had ESPN Plus on the East Coast who were then illegally streaming it though on a website. So I went over there. By the way, me watching the show isn't legal. The person who's uploading it for other people to watch, that's the illegal aspect of things. And so they illegally upload it onto the sites. I can freely watch it though, and I'm not doing anything illegal watching it because guess what? It's readily available for me on a website that I found. I can't really be tacked on for that. Also, every other avenue that can go watch it in is unavailable. I would love to go pay for it. Too bad the app crashed. Whatever. And we're in COVID, so a lot of buildings that would host events and have UFC event days happening, those are unavailable, okay? I am generally just happy that I was able to make it. I was able to go and watch a show in its totality. It was a really fun show. Sadly, people who were able... ESPN Plus ended up working for the final 2 fights. People missed a really good fight between Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas. I think that was a really good performance by Marina. People weren't able to see Joanne Calder versus Jessica Ai, which was honestly a very fun bout. Andrew Sanchez versus Makhmud Muradov. I wouldn't call it the most exciting fight out there in the world, but it ended via KO TKO. And these fighters were given the opportunity to go steal a show, and many people weren't able to see them, sadly. So, yikes. So you listen to the GSMC MMA podcast. Come back after a short break here as I dive into UFC 257. See you soon.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. And so I am discussing UFC 257. If you were able to watch it, then good on you for that. If you weren't able to watch it, you should go out there and get your refunds if you paid for it. Because yeah, you paid for a show, you didn't end up getting it. It makes sense for why you're frustrated. Alright, the words refund was trending number 2 in the world during this entire show. It's very upsetting because there's a lot of cool things that happened in this show here. Marina Rodriguez ended up knocking out Amanda Ribas in a real show-stealing performance. Makhmud Muradov ended up defeating Andrew Sanchez in the 3rd round via KO. We had Joanne Calderwood. Very big win for Joanne Calderwood because after losing her opportunity to fight against Valentina Shevchenko to Jennifer Maia, she desperately needed this. And Jessica Ai, although she didn't end up winning the bout, the fact that she got in the main card is really good enough for her, honestly, for Jessica Ai, who's also trying to have a bounce back on her career. Michael Chandler defeated Dan Hooker in what was an absolute shocker. I think no one predicted Michael Chandler winning this. No, I'll say it. People didn't predict Michael Chandler winning the way he did. People thought we would see grappler wrestler Michael Chandler. We saw knockout artist Michael Chandler. And Dustin Poirer ended up knocking out Connor McGregor in the 2nd round. Another shocker over there. And oh my goodness, so Poirier versus Connor McGregor. Me and my friends were talking about this fight, like, what went wrong here? What went wrong here? And people are going to say immediately, like, oh, Conor McGregor, he's washed up or he doesn't have it in him. And the truth is, that's not the case here. Dustin Poirier was just a better boxer. There are a couple of things that Conor McGregor could have adjusted in order for him to win this battle, because Conor McGregor was able to land... McGregor was a better striker for the majority of this fight. He was. He was landing the more cleaner shots, and also his angling of shots was really... In the 1st round, without doubt, was Conor McGregor. There are brief instances to which Poirier was able to go and land some good shots of his own, but I would argue that Conor McGregor, throughout the majority of this fight, was winning up until that final minute. So, the fight begins, 1st round, a lot of hoopla, a lot of excitement going on here. Dustin Poirier gets takedown meal on Conor McGregor. And I'm surprised people are bagging on Conor McGregor here, and they're praising Dustin Poirier for the takedown. Yes, Poirier got the takedown, but Conor McGregor was able to get right back up within the span of a minute and a half. So it showed that Conor McGregor did make an emphasis into trying to get up and trying to counter and be a more defensive fighter, be a lot more patient. And McGregor was landing these clean shots that if it was anybody else but a top elite fighter like Dustin Poirier, they would have easily got knocked out. Easily. Like, McGregor, with the way how he fought here, he fought a good fight. But Dustin Poirier has such an iron chin, and he was mentally prepped up for this fight here. He did better in his footwork. And although Poirier did get caught many times in this bout here, Poirier was able to go persevere through, and he himself was able to go find the angles against Conor McGregor. Now, not taking away anything from Dustin Poirer here, but here's some stuff that Conor McGregor should have worked on. So, Conor McGregor, if you watch his earlier fights, the Conor McGregor we know from back like 2015, 2016, the one that was like on the rise, dominant fighter, knocking out people left and right. 2015, 2016 Conor McGregor, he fights so differently. He fights so different. For one, Conor McGregor, if you watch his old fights, he typically moves at a horizontal plane, and I always say this all the time, that the best boxer should be able to go move at a horizontal instead of being vertical all the time, because by just being primarily vertical, you won't be able to go find the angling, and moving vertical means that your opportunities to go find more angles to go in, like to sidestep and go for shots, is reduced. I have a feeling that fighters who mostly move at a horizontal plane, sidestepping, will do a lot more better in confusing their opponents and will be better at finding and angling out shots. If you're just moving at a vertical plane here, your moves become very predictable. Like moving forward and backward, it doesn't really give you much in terms of versatility, and it doesn't really give you much in terms of really making you a dynamic striker. Moving horizontally, sidestepping, really does a lot. It does. When you look at fighters like John Jones or McGregor early on, or Dominic Cruz, Zhang Weili, Joanna Jacek, all these fighters are really good at moving, at sidestepping and fighting horizontally. The Conor McGregor we saw here, not only do we see like less emphasis in his less showcase of his capoeira skills, which he does have, the dude, he was moving at a vertical plane. His legs were really spread out. He wasn't shuffling his feet at all. And he was like slowly inching his way towards the pocket of Poirier. And because of that, Dustin Poirier was able to go and spot the openings on McGregor. Yes, he was able to go take some shots, but here's what Dustin Poirier did though, him being a high fight IQ fighter. He kept hitting calf kicks over and over again on McGregor. And Joe Rogan talked about this as to one of the reasons why they wouldn't win in a straight up fight against MMA fighters is because a boxer, they never check kicks. They're primarily, just for the most part, covering their upper body. And that's what Poirier did, was going kick. And Conor McGregor, a person he's been training for boxing. He's been fighting against guys like Nate Diaz, fighting against guys like Donald Cerrone. He's thinking about fighting Manny Pacquiao. And you know what all those fighters have in common? All those fighters throw very little leg kicks. Yes, Donald Cerrone, he does it at times. But for the most part, they fight that traditional boxing stance. And although Dustin Poirier, he's also capable of fighting that traditional stance, he did mix in the kickboxing aspect of things and was able to throw out leg kicks. Leg kick, onto the calf of Conor McGregor. And here's the thing, Conor McGregor was not stance switching. I always view it though, if you're getting kicked over and over again on the leg, you stance switch, so the leg that's forward is the one that's less banged up. And with McGregor, and McGregor talked about this in the post-fight presser in the interview, he said that because his leg was constantly banged up, his mobility was limited. He really couldn't put in that much force in any of his punches because you kind of have to bend your leg and lean forward in order to go put full acceleration on your punches. He wasn't able to do so. We didn't get the full momentum of Conor McGregor's punches here because his legs were banged up. He wasn't already moving at a horizontal plane, and him getting his leg kicked over and over again made him way more predictable and made Dustin Poirier be able to go find the shots. And Dustin Poirier, knowing that McGregor isn't going full force in his punches because of how banged up his legs are, Poirier can go and take the risks. He can go to these 50-50 exchanges, and he'll know and he'll understand that, you know what, I can go and endure some pain from McGregor here because I know I can go and deal the better shots. I can hit harder than him at this present moment. And that's what happened here. Dustin Poirier leg kicks Conor McGregor over and over again, able to find the angling, hits Conor McGregor with a clean right hand, stuns Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor falls down like a sack of potatoes. Dustin Poirier ended up winning the fight via KO/TKO in the second round, 2 minutes and 32 seconds in. I will say this though, Conor McGregor, after the fight, proper professional of the guy he was. He took the Conor McGregor, even in terms of attitude, is so much more different from 2015, 2016 to where he is now. Huge respect between two fighters, proper professionals. There was like little to no bad blood going to this. Both fighters were happy. Both fighters, after the fight, was like congratulating each other, giving each other props, hugging, giving fist bumps. This really was a happy ending. Even for McGregor, I say this kind of was a happy ending for him. And the reason why I'm saying it kind of is a happy ending because we're seeing the tail end of McGregor's story here. And we're not seeing like, oh, Conor McGregor, oh, he got knocked out, poor him. The way I see it is Conor McGregor, he gets knocked out, and then you can tell by the look of his face, he's like, yeah, man, this is happening. I just gotta accept it. And it's very similar to like Kobe Bryant's face when in his final year in the NBA. Because if you watch basketball and you're keeping up with the Lakers and Kobe Bryant played awful in his last year. No, in his last 2 years. He played absolutely awful in his last 2 years. His last year was just, in terms of efficiency, was the worst year ever in Kobe Bryant's history, in terms of efficiency-wise. And also, he was like a ball hog. He threw out these horrible shots that had no business even being attempted in the first place. Like, Kobe Bryant played awful basketball. But even though he fought awfully there, he always had a smile. He always had a smile because he's like, yep, I'm in the tail end of my career. You know, it happens. I'm getting old. I'm not as good as I used to. And here's it. Poirier and McGregor, they're the same age. But in terms of where they are right now, currently in their careers, McGregor, like, the dude is at the brink now, or he's near the tail end, where he could be like, yeah, I don't think Conor McGregor wants to win a title. I don't think we're going to see the Conor McGregor of 2015, 2016. I think we're going to see a Conor McGregor who's just happy to go compete. Because in the interview and the post-fight presser, he goes on to say, you know what? Dustin Poirer, man, he fought really good. He fought really well, did an awesome job, really messed me up. I want to be active. I enjoy competition. I enjoy doing something competitive. And we'll see what happens here. And Conor McGregor, he doesn't look like he's all that browbeat over losing. He isn't. And someone put it out, I saw a comment on this on Twitter, where someone ended up saying, hey, is Conor McGregor the new Tyron Woodley? And what they mean by that is that if you watch any Tyron Woodley fight, or his fights since being a champion, the guy looks dejected. He doesn't look like he's motivated. He seems like he just doesn't care. Tyron Woodley and Robbie Lawler are both fighters who I really don't want to see. But the difference between Tyron Woodley and Robbie Lawler compared to Conor McGregor is the fact that while Woodley and Robbie Lawler, they're just not motivated to even try. They have no aspirations of going out there and pulling out a good show. Conor McGregor, he pulled a great show here. This was a good fight for Conor McGregor. He didn't win the fight, but in terms of a performance, unlike those two other fighters, unlike Robbie, unlike Tyron Woodley, Conor McGregor, he put his A game out there. His A game just wasn't good enough because Dustin Poirier was the better fighter. Let's stop disregarding how good a fighter Dustin Poirier is, alright then? This is a case of, we got two excellent fighters. Conor McGregor was expected to win the fight here, but he was fighting against somebody who is in the absolute peak of their career now. We have never seen a better version of this Poirier than we see right now. We're seeing the best version of Poirier. And Conor McGregor, though, although we're not seeing the best version of him, we're seeing a darn good striker there. Because if you put anyone else but somebody who's of elite level of Dustin Poirier, McGregor would have easily knocked him out with all the punches to give. And to give you a good idea as to how close the fight was. So, I'm looking at the fight stats here. Dustin Poirier landed 53 of 98. He landed 54% of his strikes. You compare that to Conor McGregor, he landed 52 of 92. He landed 56% of his strikes. In terms of striking totality, these two are pretty much dead on even. They're dead even, with McGregor only having -1 in terms of striking totality. Now, Dustin Poirier, he landed more significant strikes, and those significant strikes was his leg kicks. Because people people only think that, oh man, significant strikes, headhunter, shots to the head. And no, Poirier landed more kicks while Conor McGregor missed more punches. And McGregor here, who normally throws out really good leg kicks, threw out little to no leg kicks in this fight. He threw like a capoeira kick like in the tail end of the first round, but for the most part, his kicks were just, they were out of the question, not really a real threat. He just throws it, but there's nothing really to it though. He mostly is a boxer for this bout here, and that's what happened. We saw boxer Conor McGregor. We didn't see kickboxer Conor McGregor. We didn't see capoeira Conor McGregor. We didn't see Conor McGregor, who was very dynamic, versatile, with a high fight IQ, being able to go pick out and angle shots. No, we didn't see that. We saw Conor McGregor, the boxer. Conor McGregor, who was a really good fighter, has knockout power, but whose knockout power was nullified as a result of the leg kicks. And even so, McGregor pulled out a strong performance. I see a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people on Instagram bashing on McGregor. McGregor had a great performance, and I think this is really discrediting, and it is very disrespectful to say, oh man, McGregor lost. No, Dustin Poirer defeated Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor lost. Let's not just say, oh man, McGregor lost, he let himself down. No. Poirier was just a better fighter, and we have to respect good fighters for their good performances. I see people like Jake Paul and Logan Paul making comments. I see people out there who don't even watch MMA who are making comments about this and like bad-mouthing Conor McGregor. Look, the Conor McGregor people know back in 2015-2016, I think he's gone. And the Conor McGregor we're seeing now is a lot more different. He's a lot more professional. And for as much as you want to dislike the guy, dude had a great performance, and you can't take that away from him, and you can't take away the victory from Dustin Poirier. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Come back after a short break here discussing UFC 257. See you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back, and so I'm discussing UFC 257. And while Dustin Poirer and Conor McGregor, while that was the fight that many tuned in to watch, the co-main events, wow, just wow. We had Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler making his UFC debut, and oh my goodness, dude. So Chandler came in as the underdog, and me and my friend were talking about this. We're like, okay, so this is how the fight's going to go. It's going to be Hooker playing it. He's going to just poke Chandler because he's got a significant reach advantage over him. He's going to poke Chandler in the striking. He's going to win the striking exchanges, and Chandler is going to go for a takedown, and Hooker's going to stop it. And then it's just going to be Chandler trying to go for the takedown, being not successful, and Hooker slowly tearing him apart. At least that was what I thought. Instead, what we saw was Michael Chandler with a one-punch knockout, knocking out Dan Hooker with an overhand right. I did not see that coming. Many people did not see that coming. And from this one fight alone, and also the promo that Chandler did afterwards, he put his stock up there, man. He is now, I say, a top 5 contender. Yeah, it has to be, right? Or else he has to be in the discussion of top 5. And right now, we're still unsure of what to expect from the lightweight division right now. It's difficult. There are a lot of moving pieces going on. What's up with Khabib? What's up with Justin Gaethje? There's also Charles Oliveira. But I'm looking at this fight here between Hooker and Chandler, and I'm very confused also because I didn't think Dan Hooker would fight the way that he fought in this bout here. And it's just like he was very passive. He was very passive, and it wasn't like he was going for counters. Because this fight here pretty much was Michael Chandler chasing Dan Hooker around. And I thought, dude, no, what's wrong with you? Dan, you got the reach advantage here. Why don't you try to poke him? Why don't you go chase Chandler down and provoke him to go for a takedown with your poking? And then if he tries to go shoot in for a double leg or a single leg, you can go stuff it. Then you can bring over to guard, and you can use your single reach advantage to go hit some ground pound action. That's what I thought. I thought Dan Hooker should have been a lot more aggressive in this bout here. He should have been the one who's chasing after Michael Chandler. But that didn't happen. It was Dan, like, the bell sounds. Chandler rushes towards Hooker, and then Hooker is just constantly sidestepping. Yeah, he is sidestepping. Good on him for that. It's a good thing to sidestep at times, move horizontally. But Hooker just wasn't really doing much here. There's nothing that Hooker did in this bout here. He was trying to go poke him, but he's like, one punch, step all the way back, one punch, step back. And there was such a significant difference in terms of the timing between each of his punches that it gave so much room for Michael Chandler to go make adjustments for his game. Because I thought here Dan Hooker could overwhelm Chandler with the striking, the same way Dan Hooker overwhelmed Dustin Poirer. Because when I look at the Dan Hooker that I see here versus the Dan Hooker that I saw fought against Dustin Poirer, complete night and day here. Because when he fought against Dustin Poirer, he just dived in there, no fear, and just bombarded Poirier with a barrage of shots. Yes, there's a real possibility that upon Dan Hooker being overly aggressive, Michael Chandler could have landed a clean shot, which, by the way, Michael Chandler did in fact end up landing a clean shot. But at least Dan Hooker would have done something, or he would have asserted himself, or made it seem kind of like a threat that Dan Hooker could potentially knock out Chandler. Do something that will overwhelm Chandler, because here's what happened here. Chandler overwhelmed Dan Hooker, which led to Dan Hooker putting his arms down and trying to find angling, trying to find the right shots when it was too little too late. Hooker was overwhelmed by Chandler. Hooker should have overwhelmed Chandler right when the bout started. That didn't happen. Hooker fought way too passive. Chandler coming out of this fight, man, is 100% healthy, dude. Like, you could book Chandler versus Charles Oliveira for next month, and Chandler will be 100% ready for that bout. Now, what's next for Dan Hooker? I'm not really sure. I don't know. But when you go look at the UFC lightweight scene right now, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov, still the current champion. Dana White, in the post-fight presser, I think he finally got to it, where he's like, okay, it seems like, this is what Dana White said. He said, it seems like everyone is convinced Khabib is retired, except me. And it seems like I'm the only one pushing for Khabib to come out of retirement. And the way how I see right now, I legitimately don't believe Khabib's going to make a comeback. I don't see it. And you know what? It's especially... I think after Khabib, if he does go see the UAE Warriors, like the footage I was shown, where it was like Dana White, or Dana White just constantly pegging, like him and his, like, we got Matt Sayre, I think Dean White, they were just constantly pegging and bothering and trolling, and they were just peer pressuring the heck out of Khabib from that Dana White looking for a fighter. Go on YouTube, go type up Dana White looking for a fighter, UAE Warriors, and the entire show pretty much is just Dana White and his crew pressuring Khabib. Like, they're kind of guilt-tripping him. There was like one scenario where Dana White was talking with Khabib, and he pulls out his phone and is like, hey Khabib, guess what? Poirier vs. Connor McGregor, that fight looks like it's going to be more popular than your fight with Connor McGregor. Imagine what would happen if you fought Connor again, huh? Imagine, huh? And he's like hitting him like in the shoulder with his elbow, and Khabib's like, yeah. And then he goes over to his right, and he sees other people being like, this other guy is saying, hey Khabib, how do you feel like fighting against Connor McGregor for the second time? Hey Khabib, what was it like fighting against Connor McGregor? Hey man, fighting is so cool. Fighting is really awesome, Khabib. I think you'll miss it. Like, so much peer pressure happening. And if Khabib sees the video, even he'll be like, okay, no. I see what Dana White is trying to do here. It's not going to happen. He's not going to go peer pressure me into being a fighter again. And he's like, oh, let's see Khabib fighting against Oliveira. Khabib versus Oliveira. Khabib versus Michael Chandler. Those are awesome fights. If I was the match booker, here is how I would book it. So first off, we would have Justin Gaethje versus Charles Oliveira. That makes the most sense to me. Charles Oliveira, he's ranked number 3. He dominated Tony Ferguson. It only makes sense for Oliveira to get an opportunity to potentially fight for the title through a normal contenders fight. Makes perfect sense. If you look at the timeline right now, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, we might not see either of these two fight again till probably maybe August of this year, like mid to late 2021. And I can see Michael Chandler, he's the type of fighter in that he wants months in advance to be prepped up to go fight. And Justin Gaethje, he's open for a fight. Oliveira, he really wants to fight against a top contender here. And both these fighters, like we got Justin Gaethje, Oliveira, Chandler, Poirier, these 4 fighters are just one fight away from getting title fights. Now, will it be against Khabib? I'm not sure. Being a hypothetical matchbooker here, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, winner of that bout, faces the winner between Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier. Then, those two go at it in either the final pay-per-view of 2021 or early 2022. And finally, we're going to see an undisputed lightweight champion. Where does Connor McGregor go from here? Not really sure. We could see McGregor versus Dan Hooker, McGregor versus Nate Diaz. You know what? McGregor versus Manny Pacquiao. That's always a big fight. It could happen. And although people are speculating in the stock of Conor McGregor that it went down, I would say our perspective on Conor McGregor went down. But in terms of stock, no, not really. I'd be down to watch any fight of Conor McGregor. He is that big of a superstar. He truly is. And I think there's a lot of resentments with Conor McGregor now with like other famous fighters. And when I say famous, I'm putting that in quotes. Because immediately after the McGregor fights, for some reason, Floyd Mayweather and Jake Paul, they just go at it on like Twitter and Instagram where they're talking smack about Conor McGregor. Floyd Mayweather, he pulls up the race card, essentially saying, hey, why do people like Conor McGregor over me? It's because I'm black in it. And the truth is, let's be perfectly honest, the Conor McGregor we're seeing now is such a proper professional. He's not really bad-mouthing, or he's not really going hard on the bad-mouthing as he used to. When he loses it, he carries it with respect. In the post-fight presser, leading up to this fight, he was nothing but respectful to Dustin Poirier. And after the fight, for the most part, what he did in the post-fight presser was just praising Dustin Poirier for being an awesome fighter. Like, him getting a kid really did change his personality, change his outlook and perspective. Yes, McGregor has said horrible things years ago, but the McGregor we're seeing now, in terms of fighting style, in terms of character, is so different. He makes most of his money from his Proper 12 stuff. He can not be a fighter at all and just be successful off his Proper 12 brand. He would make all the money. Like, he's got enough money. Like, there's a question given to Conor McGregor and the guy was quoting McGregor back in 2013, where he was telling McGregor of this quote that McGregor used to say about the future and about making money and like supporting his family. And the way that Conor McGregor responded to this question was him being like, yeah, I am proud. I am proud of everything I've accomplished. Yeah. Kind of like Kobe Bryant in his final year. It's no longer a case of Conor McGregor, he wants to be a world champion. It's not a case of Conor McGregor being like, yep, I'm really proud that I was able to achieve as much as I did. I love my family. I'll see what's next in line. I want to compete. And here's the thing, I generally don't believe Conor McGregor believes he could be champion again. I don't believe so. I think Conor McGregor just wants to do whatever will make him happy. and that's very respectable. It's understandable. Like, the jerk, loudmouth Conor McGregor, even in the promo packages, they hyped up that version of Conor. It's like the hyped up version of Conor McGregor in the promo packages is like him yelling, being a loudmouth. Then you see him in the presser, and he's like, yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm going to donate money to Dustin Poirier's foundation. It's really good. There's even a story out there that due to COVID-19, there are a lot of gyms back in Ireland that are closing down. And Conor McGregor is apparently donating money to these gyms in order to go remain afloat. And he's paying extra money up front to poor people. He's paying extra money up front to small businesses in Ireland. This guy really is turning a new leaf here. And so it is very, like, it comes across kind of jerky, kind of like a jerk, for Floyd Mayweather and Jake Paul being like, oh my gosh, look at this guy, man, what a loser. And Floyd Mayweather saying that, man, y'all are messed up. All of you guys, you don't understand. You guys are supporting Conor McGregor, but you're hating me for some reason. I don't get why. But here's the thing. February 20, we're going to see Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. It's going to be Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. That fight is going to happen. I'm not going to order it. I think there's going to be a lot of people that's honestly just not going to order the fight. It's going to get people talking about it. I think it's going to Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. It's going to be one of those fights that's going to be discussed a lot on social media. But nobody's going to come into that fight with hype being like, oh man, this is going to be super interesting. Oh man, it's going to be fun. Oh wow, what's going to happen here? There are no interesting narratives in the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather thing. Jake Paul, he's challenging Dylan Dennis, but nobody's biting him on that. Jake Paul recently made he said that I'm challenging Conor McGregor for $30 million. And then he said, like, I'm challenging Conor McGregor for $10,000 because he's not worth much anymore. And I'm just like, can people in the fight game at least be, like, nice and courteous to each other? Alright, then I know the fight game can be very vicious, but when somebody is turning a new leaf and they're being professional, it's very disrespectful to Conor McGregor. It is incredibly disrespectful to Dustin Poirier for all the training and effort he put into this training camp and into this fight. Very disrespectful on that. I'm excited for the future of Michael Chandler for Oliveira. Khabib looks like he's happy right now, retired. Conor McGregor, even though he's not winning or his place right or where he's right now is far different from the version of Conor McGregor we all want to see back in 2016. He looks fulfilled in his life. He looks happy. He looks like he's in a good place right now. He has his family. Connor's in a good place in his life. Khabib is in a good place in his life right now. And you know what? Dustin Poirier, we're seeing the best version of him. We're seeing Michael Chandler truly becoming the name that we all expected him he could be once he makes it to the UFC. We got Charles Oliveira being a journeyman fighter, finally getting the opportunity to potentially fight for the title. Fan favorite Justin Gaethje is just right there. There are a lot of good things coming up in the lightweight division. I'm excited for it though, and all of you should be excited also.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And we are back. I am discussing UFC 257. Let's talk about the rest of the main card here. So, Jessica Eye vs. Joanne Calderwood. This was a must-win for both women. Jessica Eye was at one point the number one contender for Valentina Shevchenko, and she was like one of the best elite women fighters out there in the world. But sadly, a series of injuries and her accumulating losses really slowed down the momentum for Jessica Eye, who, just like 2 years ago, was one of the best fighters out there in the world, one of the elite fighters. And you could have made the case that this guy was one of those fighters who you could kind of see give Valentina a run for her money. Now for Joanne Calderwood, sadly, she really needed this win because she was the number one contender against Valentina Shevchenko. But Valentina, she was unavailable because she's rehabbing through injuries. She had a movie to film. And also, Valentina, she was speculating on whether or not she wanted to fight during COVID times or not. So we were just unsure of whether or not Valentina Shevchenko would fight at all in the year of 2020. And then Joanne Calderwood was like, you know what? I'm done waiting. I want to fight. I want to make some money here. Fights Jennifer Maia. Lose Jennifer Maia. Then 2 months later, Valentina Shevchenko says she's readily available, and then she fights Jennifer Maia. So Joanne Calderwood doesn't even get the opportunity to actually even fight for the title, which is very upsetting here. And now we have I and Joanne Calderwood must win for both women here. Jessica I said in a recent interview that she looks to revitalize her career off of victory on Joanne Calderwood. And Joanne Calderwood, sadly, she has to go get another winning streak going on if she wants to go fight against Valentina. So this fight here pretty much is Jessica I trying to make this to a clinching bout and turn into a dirty boxing fight, which is what she was trying to do. She kept pressing forward onto Joanne Calderwood's range, pressing her onto the cage and doing some like short stiff uppercuts in the beginning. But that was just her main strategy. For the most part here, she just couldn't dive in there and get for the clinch. For the very few moments Jessica I was able to get into the clinch, Joanne Calderwood just like tosses her away, gets back within range, and then slowly just derails Jessica I's strategy here by constantly poking her over and over again with her really good crisp boxing here. So Calderwood, she ended up winning out. Better strategy. I think what Jessica I should have done here, she should have implemented a lot more leg kicks. That's what I believed. I think Jessica I came in, her boxing obviously was not on the same level as Joanne Calderwood. And I think Jessica I, she focused so much on the clinching and trying to win via dirty boxing. And the few instances that she did end up winning, it was just not enough for the judges to go be like, alright then, Jessica I, she's obviously dominating the clinches, so Joanne Calderwood will lose. No, it wasn't like that. It was more of a case of Jessica I, she mostly got her strikes off clinches, but by the time she got to the clinching, Joanne Calderwood just peggers her down with these high volume striking and was able to avoid the clinching multiple times. Yes, Jessica I did get one takedown in. She got 1 of 4 takedowns, but Calderwood got 1 of 3 takedowns herself. So she didn't really gain that much advantage to the grappling. So Jessica I, she landed 48% of her strikes, 104 out of 218. She landed 77 of 173 significant strikes, which is surprising to me because it didn't look like Jessica I did all that much damage to Joanne Calderwood in the first place. Now you compare 104 to 214 out of 319, which is what Joanne Calderwood had. She landed 67% of her strikes. She landed 110 more strikes than Jessica I. 20% more efficient. She landed 148 total significant strikes out of 240. 20% difference also. And that is it's a plus 70 difference in significant striking. So this was a massive performance a bit from Joanne Calderwood here. Sadly, Joanne Calderwood, she's one of those fighters who I legitimately just don't see her getting a potential title fight unless she goes through this ridiculous run. And she kind of has to play as a role of a gatekeeper, sadly. She doesn't deserve this, honestly. I think Joanne Calderwood is next in line. Upon being Jessica I, she should be next in line after Jennifer Maia. But instead, we have Jessica Andrade and Lauren Murphy. We're not really sure of what the future is for those two women. We could see Lauren Murphy versus Jessica Andrade. Winner of that bout will then go fight against Valentina Shevchenko. Or we could see Valentina versus Jessica Andrade. Then if Valentina Shevchenko ends up winning that bout, she'll then fight Lauren Murphy. And then after that bout, we might see her go fight against Joanne Calderwood. Maybe. But that's like potentially 2 years down the road. Joanne Calderwood was right there, and now Joanne Calderwood might not even get a title fight until maybe 2 years down the line in the future. Meanwhile, you know what? Calderwood, she has to go fight all these other fighters here. In the post-fight presser, somebody asked, it's John Anik. John Anik asked Calderwood, hey, do you believe you should be next in line for a title since you were the original normal contender up until the fight with Jennifer Maia? And Joanne Calderwood, she said it perfectly. She says, you know what? I don't think so. If the UFC wants to throw me 10 more women to fight, and I gotta be 10 women in a row in order to go fight against a champion, sure, why not? And I'm like, you know what, Joanne Calderwood, you're totally right. You and Katlyn Chookagian are both in the same position of no matter how good of a performance you give, you have to go through this insane winning streak, and you have to be like the last ones that are in the mind of the UFC brass in terms of who they want to fight against for the title. there are a lot of things going against Joanne Calderwood and Katlyn Chookagian in the sense that they're both fighters who are just like generally just not appealing to the casual audience. They're not. They don't fight in an exciting style. They fight a winning style. I wouldn't say Joanne Calderwood is like the most exciting fighter in the world there, but she fights right. She fought the right way, fighting against Jessica Ai. And Joanne Calderwood, I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up fighting against like someone like Maria Agapova at some point end of this year or early next year, as a way of like Joanne Calderwood trying to go fighting against these young prospects who are unranked or ranked from like 6 through 10. That's what I expect Joanne Calderwood to do in the next 2 years, sadly. We have Andrew Sanchez versus Makhmud Muradov, which easy to me was like the worst fight of the night. It wasn't just me saying it, though. The guys from MMA On Point were talking about it. Other MMA podcasts and people generally on social media were talking about this fight. And they're saying, oh my goodness, this fight is boring. And it really was. You know, up until the very end, where we got a stunning like highlight reel knockout here and like in the very, very end, it was a proper slugfest, but not even an enjoyable slugfest. It's one of those slugfests where like both these fighters are throwing out punches, but no one expects these punches to actually do anything up until like the final round. In like the final 2 minutes, those two just end up slugging it out. The third round was fun, admittedly, but the first and second round, it felt honestly kind of boring. And I was kind of snoozing off this fight. Other people were snoozing off this fight. There was no real narrative going in for these two, and none of these two are ranked high in the middleweight division. So it didn't feel like there was a lot at stake in this fight, and this fight just wasn't exciting enough for people to be like, oh my goodness, wow, although those two fighters were unranked, it was exciting, amazing, wow, that didn't happen like that. So we go to the opening fight between Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas. So this fight I was incredibly high on. I thought this bout had the potential to be fight of the night. Marina Rodriguez coming off a loss to Carla Esparza. Going to this bout here, me and a lot of people thought Amanda Ribas would win this bout here because Amanda Ribas, she showed that her striking ability is really darn good, and her grappling is obviously much more better than Marina Rodriguez. Though, Marina Rodriguez, really great kickboxer, one of the best strikers out there in the women's strike division. I think she is definitely good enough to compete against the likes of Rosa Namajunas and Joanna Jędrzejczyk in terms of just pure striking. I think Marina Rodriguez is just that good in the striking aspect of things. But because the reason why a lot of people thought Amanda Ribas would win was because Amanda Ribas has good striking, not as good as Marina, but she also has the grappling, she has the wrestling. And looking at this fight here, with Marina coming off a loss from Carla Esparza, I should have thought, like, okay, Marina Rodriguez had a really good defensive showcase of wrestling against Carla Esparza in their bouts. Yes, Carla Esparza, she was trying out all these overly aggressive moves that really she shouldn't have done in the first place, trying to go for like arm bars and like single leg heel locks and being too forceful in her ground and pounding and leaving herself open for reversals or for switches. That's what happened. I kind of disregarded Marina Rodriguez in her defensive wrestling against Esparza. I just chalked it down as Esparza making these reckless decisions in her wrestling, and less of Marina Rodriguez being a great grappler on her own. And what happened here was Amanda Ribas, she would try something on Marina Rodriguez. She would try to go for a takedown, but then Rodriguez stuffs it. And then afterwards, in this bout here, it became a striking exchange between two fighters. And for as good of a striker Amanda Ribas is, she is not in the same category as Marina Rodriguez. And Marina Rodriguez lands a clean right. Ribas falls down. Marina gets on top and starts raining down shots, raining down some ground and pound action onto Amanda Ribas. The commentary team thought it was over. I thought it was over. Herb Dean, the referee, he comes in, and then he kind of his shoulder or forearm taps Marina Rodriguez as she's doing the ground and pound action, which lets Marina Rodriguez think oh yeah, I won the bout. Yeah, I won. So Marina Rodriguez, she walks out. Then Amanda Ribas slowly gets back up. Herb Dean looks at Marina, and he's like, fight's still going on. And I'm like, wait, what? Everyone's confused. Marina Rodriguez looks confused. Amanda Ribas, she's already checked out at this point here. And so Marina, she's like, you know what? No fear. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do this again. So Marina, not even complaining to the referee, not protesting, goes in there, lays in another stiff right hand onto Amanda Ribas. Ribas is obviously checked out. Ribas doesn't get another knockdown again, but she's obviously dazed, kind of like Tony Ferguson, where you can tell this dude, he is not properly fit to go fight or to continue fighting. So Amanda Ribas, she's stunned. She's not fighting back. She's still standing up, but her arms are down. She's getting rocked over and over again to the face. Marina Rodriguez ends up winning the fight, defeating Amanda Ribas in the second round, 54 seconds in. And as we look at the prelims here, we also had Aman Turksukan versus Matt Favola. He defeated him after 3 rounds of action by unanimous decision. We had Brad Tavares against Antonio Carlos Jr. in a really fun fight. In my opinion, was the fight of the night for the prelims, specifically the prelims. I think Brad Tavares had a really good showcase here. One of the most fun fighters out there. He's kind of like a Vicente Luque to me, in the sense that you watch this guy, even when he's unranked, he's very green, he's very raw, but you're going to see a fun fight, an exciting one. And that's what we saw here with Brad Tavares against Carlos Jr. We had Juliana Pena versus Sarah McMahon. This fight's going to be remembered mostly for Pena calling out Amanda Nunes, saying, "You're ducking me, you're running away. There's no fighter out there who's gone through as much as I have had. Alright then, Amanda Nunes, I'm challenging you." And then Amanda Nunes, even on Twitter, says, "I'm not ducking you, you're just not my radar." And the commentary team, they made fun of Pena, saying like, "Wow, Pena, talk about challenging somebody way far above you. Wow." People on social media were digging on Pena for making the claim that she should be next in line against Nunes. No, it shouldn't be. There are other women who are right now in front of you. Jermaine Durandame deserves another title fight over you. And Pena, she fights in the bantamweight division. And Jermaine Durandame, she is the closest fighter to really give Amanda Nunes a challenge in the bantamweight division. So, yeah, I don't think Pena... If Pena goes on a winning streak, wins 2 more fights in a row, gets legitimate contenders in the top 10, then maybe. But right now, no. Pena still's got a lot. She's got another 2 years. I think Pena has to be successful and go on a winning streak for the next 2 years. And then she might be in discussion for a fight against Amanda Nunes. Also, what the hell Pena won this fight against Sarah McMahon here? No, it's not happening. Sarah McMahon, she's nowhere near of a striker or as powerful as a wrestler as Nunes. And even then, Pena struggled against McMahon here, and she left herself open for a lot of shots. And she had to go and grapple with McMahon here for the most part in the first round. So yeah, it wasn't the best showcase for Juliana Pena. She ended up winning. Good for her on that. But it wasn't like, wow, Pena, great performance. Can you imagine her fighting Amanda Nunes? Well, I can kind of, and it's not going to end up well for Pena. And then we have the opening bout for the prelims, which is Khalil Roundtree Jr. versus Marcin Petruria. Marcin Petruria ended up winning the bout by unanimous decision after 3 rounds of action. A really fun opening bout there. And overall, actually, if you go look at the card here, the entire card from main and prelim was comprised of a whole lot of underdog victories. Like, Roundtree Jr. was supposed to go and win that bout. We had Dustin Poirer, he was the underdog of the bouts. Michael Chandler was the underdog. Jessica Ai won Calderwood. That was the closest in terms of the betting odds of alright then, Ai, Calderwood. They're very close. It's a toss-up right there. Marina Rodriguez was the underdog against Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas was the heavy favorite against Marina, which is surprising to me. I thought Amanda Ribas would be the minus 115 favorites going to the bout here, but it was a lot more different from what I speculated what the betting odds difference would be. And so that wraps up my review for UFC 257. Overall, a fun show to watch. Although there were technical difficulties with ESPN Plus crashing, people demanding refunds, and people only seeing the final 2 fights of the show and not really getting their money's worth really in terms of their expectations. Despite all that, UFC 257 was a fun show from beginning to end. There are a lot of questions for the UFC's lightweight division. Will there be a champion? What's next for Connor? Who's Poirier going to fight next? Who's Chandler going to fight next? A lot of questions, but these are good questions to ask because it looks like the lightweight division will continue to be as exciting as it typically is. So with that being said, I bring this podcast to a close with me saying thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC MMA podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.